A young mother murdered, and more than 2 decades later, police are still searching for answers. Good evening, I'm Anna Manuel.
And I'm Josh Shaber. Thanks for joining us. From Bible study to cold case, in the first part of our 2-part series, GTN's Alicia Tarancon takes us back 23 years ago when the shocking discovery of a body was found. In our big story, how detectives need help finding new information to close this cold case.
January 16, 1992, a typical Monday night in Gainesville, where locals flocked to Bible study at the United Pentecostal Church. Among the regulars, 30-year-old Judy Macfarlane. After class, detectives say the mother of 4 was offered a ride home from the church minister. She refused, choosing to walk home instead. She was last seen picking flowers in the rain. After a week went by without hearing from her, Judy's family grew concerned.
I start thinking about, oh wait, we would have found her by now, we would have heard from her, but you always try in the back of your mind to keep believing she's okay, they'll find her, she's got the kids, she'll be back, I know she loves her kids, she wouldn't leave her kids. But in part of you knows something's wrong.
Judy had just moved into the Meadowcrest apartments a few weeks before. She was recently separated from her husband. She was taking classes at Santa Fe College studying industrial engineering. It had been a tough couple of months for the family. Back in December, she was living at her mother's house when a fire broke out.
It's 3 days after Christmas, and we pretty much lost everything in the family home.
Without a job and little money to support her kids, Judy had her children stay with her cousin.
Back then, she just was probably overwhelmed by this set of circumstances. And it was not in the greatest neighborhood, and it would have been a very difficult place to raise 4 young children.
Once Judy vanished, detectives searched for her near her home. Judy's family and members of her church searched around Gainesville. Almost 6 months passed and still no sign of Judy, until June 25th. It was a warm Thursday afternoon. A Department of Transportation worker was cutting grass near a retention pond off Northeast 39th Avenue. That's where the worker spotted something unusual in the water.
They described it as a huge rag doll. So they literally went over to it, and they had like a pitchfork, and they just gently touched it, and it was a human skull.
Gainesville police and Alachua County Sheriff deputies were called. When they arrived, they pulled out what was left of human remains. The medical examiner needed to compare dental records to ID the body because it was in such bad shape. Judy's niece Shirley had just come home from school to hear the family's worst fears confirmed.
I went back to the apartment with my aunt Jeanette had got as well, and my granny was there, very, very emotional. I couldn't really understand her. And my Aunt Jeanette told me that my mom was on her way. And I said, why? And she said, well, they found Aunt Judy. And my granny just cried harder,
Judy Macfarlane's body was so badly decomposed they couldn't determine the cause of death.
So they couldn't say she was murdered by strangulation or gunshot wound. We had a lot of trouble even recovering all the bones, some of which had been scattered back then. So without a direct cause of death, they couldn't call it a homicide.
But detectives still found Judy's death mysterious. How did her body wind up in a retention pond, a pond surrounded by an 8-foot-tall locked fence protected by barbed wire?
It sure seemed like a very covert place to place the body, to conceal a body, in very close proximity to where she disappeared.
Reporting in Gainesville, Alicia Tarancon, GTN News.
And you'll want to tune in tomorrow night as we continue our 2-part series on the mysterious death of Judy Macfarlane.